It's time for a Thursday afternoon edition of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. It is not Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton today. It is Mic'd Up with Fulton and a sprinkle of Kyle. As Jake LeBon is on vacation, he'll be off today and tomorrow. Jake will be back coming up on Monday. So just me and a little bit of my good friend Kyle Manthe with you for Mic'd Up the next 2 days. It is a warm Thursday afternoon in the capital city. If you're listening into the weather update we had at the top of the hour, an excessive heat warning is in effect for Topeka and the surrounding area. Because why not? Because why not at the end of July, it becomes so unbearably hot. I don't understand it. You know, with Jake gone, we're going to complain about the heat even more because I don't have to listen to Jake try and tell me it's good. I don't have to listen to Jake trying to define to me how walking outside and boiling under the sun is a good thing. Not saying summer is bad. Summer is fine. There are many good parts of summer. Heat, though, stinks. But outside of a minor weather tangent, we have a lot coming up on today's show, including breaking down some massive news in the world of college football that came down last night. We're going to look first, though, at the Chiefs, their wide receiver core, and look at the numbers of two departed wide receivers for the Chiefs and kind of look and identify where the pickup could come from, particularly from one receiver in particular. So we're going to kind of break down the Chiefs wide receiver room. We're going to look at a article in USA Today from new Broncos head coach Sean Payton, to which he rips Nathaniel Hackett. And it's honestly hilarious. We're going to look at kind of a little bit of Sean Payton taking some shots at Nathaniel Hackett and the New York Jets, and just kind of give our thoughts on Sean Payton himself and where he's coming from with these ideas. We're going to look at an MLB Trade Deadline update. Two American League Central teams, fortunately one of them is not the Kansas City Royals, were involved in a pair of fairly sizable trades last night in MLB. So we'll kind of look at the updates and see where the Royals might be standing on some of their potential trade contenders. They lost yesterday. That's no big deal. I'm not going to waste my breath on it at all, because why should I waste my breath on a baseball team that sucks as much as the Kansas City Royals? I'm not going to waste my time on that today. So we will tie them in the capacity of a trade deadline. And then we will look at the big news for today. The Big 12 is expanding. They're adding one more team. And folks, the band is getting back together. Colorado is coming back to the Big 12. It was announced last night in a move that moved pretty quickly. It was first announced that Colorado was just going to have a meeting among their Board of Regents this morning. And then like 30 minutes later, it was announced, no, like they're probably still going to meet, but it's to confirm what is being happening. In 2024, the Colorado Buffaloes will come back to the Big 12. Colorado's coming home. And I, for one, am so happy. I want Colorado home. I don't care. I want Nebraska home. I want Nebraska to lead the Big Ten and come back home. I want as many old school Big 12, even more importantly, Big 8 if you got them. I want them all together. Colorado has been with schools like KU, K-State, Iowa State for forever. Come home. And Colorado, the Buffaloes, are officially coming home. We will break down that news coming up in the 2 o'clock hour because there's so much I want to get to with it. I am saving it for when I can ramble as long as I want. Every other hour, we have other time constraints. I can ramble as long as I want in the 2 o'clock hour on it. We're going to break down all the news regarding Colorado coming back to the Big 12 and what that means for the impact on the Big 12 in 2024, what it's going to mean to the Pac-12 as they continue to spiral, and all of that as well. And we will also hear from MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy. Jake at MIAA Media Days was able to sit down with Mike Racy, chat with him a little bit. We will hear that conversation and get kind of some thoughts a tiny bit on MIAA expansion. Just part of what Jake asked among just a myriad of questions about the state of the conference. We will get to that coming up at the top of the 1 o'clock hour today. We got the Everyone Loves the List, Start Bench Cut, all that great stuff coming up to you today on Mic'd Up. As always, you can join in on the text line, 785-272-9429. Your texts are welcome every day we have this show, but they're welcome even more when Jake isn't here because I get a little extra interaction. There's more room for you guys when it's just me and Kyle hanging out here. A little bit extra room, so we will take all of your questions, comments, and concerns on our text line. You can also watch this show live on YouTube. Go to youtube.com Sports on 580 is that YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it as we continue our march towards 300. You can jump in the comment section as well. But where do we begin today's show? Is with the Kansas City Chiefs, who are off on practice today. No Chiefs audio today. We're not hearing from any member of the Chiefs today, unfortunately. I know, bums me out as much as it bums you out. But they are off today, their first scheduled break in training camp as they rear up for pads tomorrow. The pads come on tomorrow, so they're getting the day off today. But as we've sat and we've discussed a lot about the Chiefs and their offense in particular, one big thing keeps coming up from Jake and I. It's been discussed on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan on a larger scale with national media and larger publications. The Chiefs wide receivers seem to be at the forefront of so many conversations about what it'll be, what will it look like, who does what, because there's so many unknown factors. And a big question that myself and Jake had, kind of looking at this more over, is, all right, let's take this into almost a Moneyball approach to bring in the Moneyball A's for a minute. When it comes to the Chiefs, all you're trying to do, and really this is for every team, what you're trying to do year to year when a player leaves is you're not as often trying to replicate that player specifically, because that is often a fool's errand. So many players, as much as they might have similar skill sets, do have individual things about them that it's hard to replicate. But what you need to do above all else is you have to replicate numbers. That was the whole Moneyball thing of, we're not trying to replace Giambi. We're trying to replace, 40 home runs and 100 RBI. Where are those going to come from? If we can create those through a collective, we have stayed where we want to be. So that becomes the thought. The two biggest departures in the Chiefs offense this past offseason were McCole Hardman and JuJu Smith-Schuster. And so the question has always become, and a bigger one's always been, well, who replaces JuJu? Well, instead of the skill sets, at times I've thought, skill set, physicality-wise, Rashee Rice actually really fits the JuJu role based on his build, based on his size and things like that. But the bigger question is, who can take his numbers? And how can you replicate his numbers? Last year, JuJu Smith-Schuster had 933 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. And it was only 3. I want to double check, because 3 feels low, but it's true. JuJu didn't really ever get to the end zone much last season. 3 touchdowns tied a career low. I said like 2021 kind of counts because he only played 5 games. But 2019, he also only had 3 touchdowns. Played 16 games, started 14 of them. But yeah, 933 yards, 3 touchdowns. So the question becomes, out of, really for me, I'm going to kind of put Marquez Valdez-Scantling in his own little box. We're going to take MVS and we're going to place him in his own little box. Because I think what he is what he is, and his numbers are his numbers. So that means through the combination of Justin Watson, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Richie James, and Rashee Rice, somewhere from that, can you get 933 yards and 3 touchdowns? Which I think is really doable. But let's break it down even more. Let's take it, in my opinion, let's put it in 3 guys that essentially weren't part of the team last year, that their numbers can fully be new. Kadarius Toney, because while he had, I believe, 171 yards last year, he gets his own little didn't really count last year tag because he was new to the offense, whatever. So Toney, Richie James, and Rashee Rice. Can those 3 together give you 933 yards and 3 touchdowns? I mean, I think so. If not to pick on Jake, but if you were to listen to Jake, maybe Rashee Rice gets 900 yards all on his own. Not Rashee Rice, Richie James, because of how big of a Richie James guy Jake is. But that is honestly the question. Can those 3 guys combine for 933 yards and 3 touchdowns? And that would be on a per yardage basis for the 3 of them. 311 yards a player, because that divides up very nicely. Can those three guys all get 311 yards on average in the season? I mean, Tony had 171 last year in his season. He wasn't even ingrained in. But you have to imagine he could probably get to 300 if he can, depending on when he comes back from his knee injury and things like that. Rashee Rice, Sky Moore had 250 yards in his rookie season. It looks like Rice might be farther ahead of him. So I don't think that's crazy. And then Richie James last year had 569 yards for the Giants. And more so with Richie James, if we even think that maybe his stats with the Giants were just a tad inflated, maybe because of target share and who he's playing with. Just prior in 2020 with the San Francisco 49ers, he had 394 yards. That's when he was really getting some deeper depth of targets and yards per reception. So those three guys, I really think, honestly, can Richie James and Kadarius Toney combine to be JuJu Smith-Schuster? Can they combine to 933 yards and 3 touchdowns? If it was just the two of them, they would need about 467 yards each. That's not insane numbers to ask for. 467 yards for a total season, if you played 17 games, it is only 27 yards a game. Now, we get into the traditional difficulty of, can Toney play enough games to where he would only need 27 a game? That's the difficult part for that. For Richie James, he's never really had big health injuries, health concerns. Played all 17 games last season, had some health issues in 2020, only played in 11 games, but all 16 games in 2019 and 13 games in 2018. Can Richie James get you 27 receiving yards a game? I think so. And so that's where that becomes. So I feel that the Chiefs can find a way to take over JuJu's workload between Toney and Richie James. That's not asking a rookie to do anything. What you're asking there is a veteran receiver in Richie James to do something productive, which he did it last year. I want to, kind of take a sidebar, essentially. We're going to bend off the road for a minute to the Richie James camp. Richie James last year had 57 catches, 569 yards, 4 touchdowns. All of those were career highs. He was third in targets for the Giants, behind Darius Slayton, who had 71 targets, because Richie had 70. And Saquon Barkley had the most targets for a Giant at 76. One, it's probably not great when your running back has the most targets, but that's the Daniel Jones experience. The thing is, I don't know if he gets 70 targets on this team. That's my big concern, and that's what I've tried to, at times, get across to Jake, is I don't know if he can get 70 targets on the season. Let's look at the targets for the Chiefs last year. Let's just play that game. Now, that being said, you have 101 targets off this team, because that's what JuJu Smith-Schuster had last season, 101 targets. In theory, there's potentially 70-some targets you could get to Richie James. But also, there are a lot more talented guys on this team. But if you took that in half, I think he could get there. Let's say, you give 50-some targets to James, 50-some targets to Kadarius Toney, probably more. But again, we're playing with some weird numbers here. You're never going to know where numbers. The numbers always feel really sketchy at this point. He could potentially do it. So, to steer back onto the main path here, to get off of our sidebar and back onto the main path, I do honestly feel kind of confident that Richie James and Kadarius Toney can get you the 933 yards and 3 touchdowns that JuJu had. Because if those two combine for that, you have replaced one of your key components from last season. You've done it. Finished. Because we're going to say Travis Kelce's his usual self. And the next question becomes, how do you replace Mecole Hardman? Which, if you're like me, we're not that worried. When he left, he went to the New York Jets. Hope the Jets enjoy him. You can see Mecole Hardman on Hard Knocks apparently now. Because if they're doing Hard Knocks, Mecole's going to be in that camp. So, I guess if you want to see what he's doing there. But Mecole Hardman last year, 25 catches, 297 yards. For me, it's this simple. Can Sky Moore do that? Can Sky Moore get you 25 catches for 297 yards? There are also 4 touchdowns there, but touchdowns, I just say you just sprinkle them along to everybody else. I mean, an extra, give a touchdown to Richie James. Yeah, Richie James gets 2 touchdowns himself. There's half of those touchdowns made up for. Give a couple of touchdowns to Kadarius Toney. Boom, bang, bingo, bongo. Touchdowns are their own thing. But can Sky Moore get you 25 catches for 297 yards? He gave you 22 for 250 last year alone on 1 less target. There's been a lot of talk sometimes about how Toney will fit into the McCole Hardman role and what he'll do. And while I think Toney fits more for those types of plays, the jet sweeps, the fly sweeps, the quick motion stuff, more than Sky Moore does, because Sky Moore is not that type of athlete. He's a different type of athlete, and he is still a very good player, but he's just not that, elite burst of speed guy. If Sky Moore can increase his volume to the McCole Hardman volume, so let's use Moore to replace that, then you would you legit have to go to, well, unless he doubles up his numbers, which is hard to do, who then fills in the Sky Moore gap? And that's where I just go Rashee Rice. Can Rashee Rice just be last year's Sky Moore? And that, I think, is very doable. If there's, out of all of this numbers I'm throwing at you, which I do always apologize for throwing so many numbers at you. Numbers aren't fun. If there's anything I'm most confident in, and maybe I'm falling into the trap and riding the training camp high and riding the wave of him having just some good, plays out of pads, I really think Rashee Rice at worst can just be last year's Sky Moore, which is good, which is fine, because that might be just what this team needs. Because I think MVS does exactly what he did last year. Excuse me. 42 catches, 687 yards, and 81 targets. That's not that hard for him to do. And I feel confident he can do that. So it comes down to, can you replace JuJu and can you replace McCole Hardman? And I think through 3 dudes, Richie James, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, you can replace all those numbers. Rashee Rice fills in the Sky Moore gap. Justin Watson just does what Justin Watson did last year. 15 catches, 315 yards. McKinnon probably regresses a little bit. I doubt Jerick McKinnon has 56 catches for 512 yards and 9 touchdowns. But overall, the pieces exist on the team for you to fill in those numbers in those spots. So it'll just be a question of who fills them in. But I think those 3 guys, Richie James, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, those 3 guys are your probably, in my opinion, most significant pieces to fill in the numbers gaps that exist to try and fill in the number void left by JuJu Smith-Schuster and McCole Hardman leaving this team. We have a lot of time to see what happens. We have a lot of training camp to go to see what happens. But nonetheless, the Chiefs should have the ability to keep pretty good offense and replicate what's going to happen coming up this season. We're going to take our first time out of the show. When we come back, the Women's World Cup, the U.S. had their second match last night, and boy, did it have a very, very fun moment. The USA had their second match at the Women's World Cup down in Australia last night here in the States. Yesterday, like sometime in the afternoon in Australia. Time zones are weird. I'm not even going to worry about that. The U.S. and the Netherlands drew 1-1, a very tense match, with the USA going down 1-0 early, and we're down 1-0 at half. The first time that trailed at half since, I believe, 2011 versus Sweden. It had been that long since the U.S. had trailed at a World Cup match at halftime. The best moment, though, and there are a lot of great moments, and the U.S. played very well, but shout out the Netherlands. They also had an amazing first half. You take a draw, U.S. should be fine to keep moving on. So the Netherlands is up 1-0. We're getting into the second half. Things are going. And there's an aggressive foul on Team USA captain Lindsey Horan, who is fantastic, a great player. She's fouled by her own teammate. They play for the same club team, but two different countries. And they get chippy. Like we got multiple players in each other's faces, angry madness. It's awesome. The U.S. very quickly gets a corner after that. And then in the best fashion ever, Lindsey Horan puts it in to tie the game and ends up being the 1-1 score. It was awesome. It was fantastic. USA's next match, if they win, they're good. A draw, you're probably fine. But overall, a fine match for the USA against the Netherlands last night. We're going to take another timeout, get a little ag update. When we come back, Sean Payton had some words to say about the New York Jets and Nathaniel Hackett. And man, was it funny. We'll get to that coming up next. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW on this Thursday afternoon. So, the Denver Broncos last year were a hilarious mess, as I'm sure we all can agree. It was funny. Jake and I got a lot of jokes off. We were enjoying it. It was fun to talk about. It was a good time. We all discussed how, in over his head Nathaniel Hackett was. And now Nathaniel Hackett's also the offensive coordinator of the Jets, because fail upwards in life, I guess. Because if you do one thing good one time, it will just let you keep moving forward all you want. Because surprise, surprise to everybody, Nathaniel Hackett's actually had a lot of bad years as running an offense. He just had one good year with Aaron Rodgers. And now because Rodgers is in the Jets think he's the decision. I don't know. That is what it is. But this offseason, the Denver Broncos traded once again for another person to try and pull them out of mediocrity. And that was a head coach in Sean Payton. Then Sean Payton signed a ridiculously big contract, reportedly worth $18 million a year, because they got that Walmart money now. Good for them. And I've been very clear, I'm not the biggest Sean Payton fan. I think he's legitimately good at his job. I think he is a good head coach. I think he does run a good offense and usually does have good teams. I also like to point out that almost all of his good teams have had Drew Brees at quarterback. That matters. That matters. I also am of the opinion, this is not just me, and nor is this, an original idea, but I, have come to fully agree with it. Sean Payton also thinks Sean Payton's the smartest man in the world. And I think that bites him in the you-know-what way more than he would ever realize. That all being said, Sean Payton did an interview with USA Today Sports. And it was done by USA Today's Jarrett Bell. And in it, Sean Payton just kind of went off. And it was hilarious. Mainly, he went off on how bad the Broncos season was last year in what came off to me as a heavy defense of Russell Wilson, almost as if he did all of this just to defend Russ, which I've also made my opinions on Russell very clear. I think part of their problems last season were Hackett and him running a just terrible organization and terrible offense. The other part is Russ is cooked. I do not think Russell Wilson is still good. I do not think he's still good. I think that will be shown this year with the Broncos again. But it feels like that was also part of the reason that Sean Payton decided to kind of go in on the Broncos last year. But there's just some interesting moments in this article from USA Today. First off is that Sean Payton believes they'll be a playoff team this year. And more importantly, Sean Payton will be, quote, this is from Sean Payton, quote for him, I'm going to be pissed off if this is not a playoff team. So Sean Payton will be very angry if they are not a playoff team this year. Regardless of the fact that Patrick Mahomes is still in your division. So getting there by way of winning the West will be incredibly hard. So then you have to get a wild card spot, which is still hard as well. And then Peyton kind of made a lot more comments about the Broncos, and it kind of started a bit going in on their offseason. You know, Peyton had this to say about the Broncos offseason last year. He said, quote, it doesn't happen often where an NFL team or organization gets embarrassed, and that happened here in regards to Denver. Part of it was their own fault relative to spending so much exploitive time trying to win the offseason. The PR, the pomp and circumstance, marching people around and all this stuff. I mean, he's right. Denver last year, when they traded for Russell Wilson, they tried so hard to win the press conference. They did everything in their power to make this look like a monumental move that was going to save the Broncos organization, make it akin to when Peyton Manning came to town in like 2012 or whatever that was. I think it was 2013. Whatever. Peyton was there for a couple of years. Either way, ignore that part. That's what it was. Russell Wilson was the savior. He's going to ride in on his Bronco, which is actually really nice metaphor for the Denver Broncos as a team. He's going to ride in and save the day. And Denver did everything they could to make sure you knew that that is what they wanted to do that offseason. And moreover, they did everything to prove and to try and prove that Russell Wilson was not a consolation prize, that they were not pivoting to plan B because they couldn't lure Aaron Rodgers away from Green Bay. They were trying to make it very clear, no, we hired Nathaniel Hackett because we wanted Nathaniel Hackett, and that's it. You know, we traded for Russell Wilson because he was our guy. He's who we wanted, not Aaron Rodgers. Sean Payton's right. They spent so much of their offseason power trying to win that press conference, and it kind of worked, but also kind of didn't. But also, he goes in about how bad the offense was last year. Here's Sean Payton on the offense and what was the problem with Russell Wilson last year. Payton says, quote, there's so much dirt around that. There's 20 dirty hands for what was allowed, tolerated in the frickin' training rooms, the meeting rooms. The offense, I don't know Hackett. A lot of people had dirt on their hands. It wasn't just Russell. He didn't just flip. He still has it. This BS that he hit a wall, shoot. They couldn't get a play in. They were 29th in the league in pre-snap penalties on both sides of the ball. Which is just, again, Sean Payton just going all in on Denver and ripping these guys. Then we talked a lot, and we've mentioned this, about Russell Wilson and all like the amenities he got as a Bronco. He has his own office, all his training area, that former is this Jayhawk Jake Heaps, who's his personal quarterback coach, which I still find funny. Like, you want to point to me with what's wrong with Russell Wilson? He has Jake Heaps as his quarterback coach. What can Jake Heaps teach you about being a quarterback? How to throw interceptions? How to be very bad at the job? That's what he can teach you, nonetheless. But Jake Heaps was given, but according to Sean Payton, that's not Russell Wilson's fault. Payton says, quote, that was the parents, i.e. those in charge, who allowed it. That's not an incrimination on him, but an incrimination on the head coach, the GM, the president, and everybody else who watched it all happen. Now, a quarterback having an office and a place to watch film is normal, but all those things get magnified when you're losing. And that other stuff, I've never heard of it. We're not doing that. Man, that is funny. And this was the last little bit on Sean Payton's shots at the Broncos and more importantly at Nathaniel Hackett. Said, quote, everybody's got a little stink on their hands. It's not just Russell. It was a poor offensive line. And this is maybe one of the best quotes in here. Sean Payton, quote, it might have been one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. That's how bad it was. So if you're Nathaniel Hackett, don't read USA Today today. Which we're going to get to other parts of what Sean Payton had to say. Nathaniel Hackett doesn't get a choice. The Jets have already heard about this because Robert Saleh has said some words, and we'll get to those in a minute. But I can't remember the last time an acting head coach sat down for an interview and just eviscerated the previous regime. One of the worst head coaching jobs in NFL history. Folks, he's putting Nathaniel Hackett up there with Urban Meyer. And we all know how bad the Urban Meyer experience went. I get it. And also, I don't think Peyton's wrong. Listen, Nathaniel Hackett, I'm sure he is a lovely human being. I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's a bad football coach. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. You can be a great guy and be really bad at your job. So he's not wrong to say Nathaniel Hackett's job was one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history. He is right. But just to be so open about it and to do so much to take the flack off of Russell Wilson is just really funny to me. And I get it. I get why he's doing it. But, man, you got to be careful with your words. And like I said, this all comes to me less from a place of, let me get to one more part here and then, because this all ties together. Because Nathaniel Hackett wasn't the only person Sean Payton took a shot at in this piece. Sean Payton took a shot at the New York Jets. In regard to the pomp and the circumstance and the PR of the offseason, this is what Sean Payton had to say. Quote, we're not doing any of that. The Jets did that this year. You watch Hard Knocks, all of it, I can see it coming. Buddy, what did the Jets do to you to deserve the stray? The Jets, I mean, we could say what you want to say about the Jets and what their organization is and what they're doing. But, man, they didn't want to be on Hard Knocks. Like, that shot in particular, I don't get. Robert Saleh didn't want to do it. The organization didn't want to do it. They were forced to do it. They were told by the NFL, you're one of the teams we can make you do this. You have been selected. You're doing this. But more importantly, Robert Saleh has a response. Robert Saleh, the head coach of the New York Jets, was asked about Sean Payton's comments during his media availability today as they get more of their own offseason rolling and their training camp rolling. Robert Saleh said, quote, if you ain't got no haters, you ain't popping. So hate away. Obviously, we're doing something right if you got to talk about us when we don't play you until week 5. Man, I've never been more excited for a football game between two teams I care not at all about. But, man, Jets-Broncos is going to rule. That game's going to rule. And to kind of circle back to this whole thing here, I get Sean Payton wanting to make it clear that Russell Wilson's his guy, Russell Wilson's his quarterback, and you want to defend your quarterback. You want to defend your guy. This is not just an NFL thing. This is a sports in general thing. We talk about it. You know, offensive linemen when they get in the face of other guys when a quarterback gets hit late. When, we have other head coaches speak about their players. Other guys on the team speak up for their guys. Like, speaking up for your teammates, for your dudes, is just a common thing in sports. It's what you do. So that part of this, that Sean Payton's doing this to stick up for Russell Wilson, I get it. I get that Sean Payton's going to say all these good things about Russell Wilson. He's his quarterback. Their futures are tied together right now. It is what it is. Sean Payton was brought in to revive Russell Wilson. Russell's success is Sean's success. Russell's failure is Sean's failure. So they're tied at the hip about this. But this also comes off so heavily, to me at least, as a man desperately trying to clean up Russell Wilson's image. This comes off to me as Sean Payton doing everything in his power to make it clear of, hey, listen, Russell, yeah, he had some issues last year, but also look at how bad his coach was. Look at how bad the executives were, which also took kind of some shots at the executives and presidents, and they're all still there. Like, unless I'm mistaken, that hasn't changed, which is also funny. But Sean Payton spent an entire interview basically saying almost nothing last year was Russell's fault. You know, oh, all those distractions off the field. Well, yeah, that's not great, but it's not Russell's fault. It's the GM's fault and the coach's fault for letting him have all that stuff. It's not Russell's fault that Jake was around the facility all the time and getting in the way of everything and basically acting like a fanboy in the facility. That's not Russell's fault. That's Nathaniel Hackett's fault. That's George Payton's fault. That's all the other people's fault who run the building or run the organization. That's their fault. It's totally cool for Russ to have an office with the coaching staff. That's the part I think we leave out here from Sean Payton. He's like, it's normal for players to have an office. One, can someone find me one other big quarterback who has an office? Like, does Mahomes got an office at the Chiefs facility we don't know about? Does Pat got an office around there we don't know about? One, I think that's a load of crap. Two, he had it with the coaching staff, separating himself from his teammates. That was the problem, Sean. Points that, hey, well, the offense was the problem because they had too many hands in the offense. Too much hands on Russell. Too many guys telling him what to do. Also, by the way, all the pre-snap penalties. Yeah, part of those pre-snap penalties were definitely Nathaniel Hackett's fault. Also, and I could be wrong about this, hasn't Russell always had that issue going back to Seattle? Like, didn't even the Seahawks, not to that extent, but weren't they also a team that kind of had some... This entire thing just comes off so hard as a Russell Wilson defense piece. And like I said, I don't blame him. I get why Sean's doing it. I get why Sean Payton's doing it. You have to defend your guy and you have to set yourself up in a way to where you can maybe help make him look better. The problem is all of this comes off of, to me, is very defensive and very much I want to do what we're trying to do. And I'm going to try to put as much shine back on my star player as I can. And I just don't know if this was the way to do it. I don't know if the way to do it was to sit here and take shots at other teams. Taking shots at Nathaniel Hackett, I kind of get it. Like, that's going to be the big quote of this is Sean Payton calling what happened last year one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history. The thing is, he's right. Like, you can't flag facts. He's correct. What happened last year with Nathaniel Hackett in charge was an unmitigated disaster. It was high levels of dumbassery. So that's correct. But to say Russell still got it, to say, well, it wasn't Russ's fault, to say, well, his issues were all because Nathaniel Hackett, ran a bad offense. I just think that's disingenuous, is the word I would use. It feels disingenuous because it feels like what actually happened, Sean, is your quarterback is cooked. Your quarterback is bad. But to spend an entire piece in USA Today Sports ripping the Broncos of last year and taking a shot at the Jets, man, that's just funny. It's really, really funny to me. And then just, some of this other stuff too is some of the things Sean Payton has discussed about kind of doing things a little bit differently, and also the weird stuff he does at training camp. First off, this was discussed last year. Nathaniel Hackett didn't play starters in the preseason last year and would even keep them out of one-on-one drills and training camp practice, which is kind of fine, but also not the greatest thing in the world. Sean Payton's reversed that. Sean Payton's, ramping it up as much as he's allowed to under the current CBA. And then Sean Payton, I didn't realize this, and I have to get to this to kind of close this out. So Sean Payton plays his team's videos sometimes, like little short films, as ways to potentially motivate them, including during this past spring, to hammer home that the 2022 season was over. He showed the team a video of some team staff members riding off in an orange 2022 Ford Bronco that apparently is positioned near the practice field. They drove away with it and then edited that in with a scene from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles where John Candy's character drives the wrong way on a freeway and the truck drives off a cliff. I don't know what to make of that, but I could not leave this without pointing out that was in this story. That was the thing Sean Payton does. There's really, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know what really to take away from that. I said if Sean Payton's a little odd in his motivation tactics, but that is what it is. But this is where we're at. This is where we are at, or at least where the Broncos, I guess, should say, are at for this season. They have to succeed. And that's the danger with these types of pieces as well, is the more you publicly talk about, oh, well, it was this guy's fault and this guy's fault. It was all these other people's faults. It's different now that I'm here. You put more pressure on yourself to have to succeed in year one. What if the Broncos go 9-8 and miss the playoffs? Cool, you get a winning season. That's nice. But if they miss the playoffs, after Sean Payton said, I will be, quote, pissed off if we miss the playoffs, that's a problem. And he's now put this team up in another position of high expectations to have to succeed immediately, which is like he said, we're not going to do what happened last year with the PR, the pomp, and the circumstance. Here's the problem, Sean. You're already doing it, though, by saying, well, we have to beat the playoffs. Well, Russ still got stuff in the tank. He's not washed. He still got it. It was all these other guys' fault. All of that creates the problem you said you weren't going to create, because you're putting all these expectations on yourself to once again potentially be a lot better than what you actually are. He is overselling and now must over-deliver. There's nothing wrong with underselling, folks. Never wrong with the undersell, over-deliver strategy. It's my favorite strategy. Maybe Sean Payton should try it. I don't know. But now Jets Broncos Week 5 should be hilarious. That does it for the noon hour Mike Depp. Coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, we are from MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy. It is time for hour number 2 of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Cast here with you for hour number 2. Thank you all for stopping by. We try to have a very enjoyable show on this very hot July afternoon in the capital city of Kansas. Coming up in the 1 o'clock hour of the show, we are going to hear from MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy. His conversation with Jake LeBon at MIAA Media Days as they discuss the state of the conference and maybe a little bit of conference expansion as well. We're looking at the MLB Trade Deadline. There were 2 fairly big moves happening yesterday, which involved some AL Central teams. No, one of those teams wasn't the Royals. It's a bummer. I hate it. Maybe they'll do something new by 1:30. That'd be awesome because they're off today. We're going to look at those trades and also kind of like some of the Royals trade candidates and kind of just give a state of where the deadline's at, where other teams are at, and everything that's going on along the MLB and the MLB Trade Deadline. Everyone loves the list today. A while back, I wasn't here for this. Jake and Dan did a star list. I can't remember what the inspiration was, but they did things with star in the name, which was fun. Today, because it is National New Jersey Day, apparently, Kyle and I are going to do things with new in the title. Best things regarding new. Is it derivative? A little bit. Is it fun? That's the important part. But that is going to be everyone loves a list today. Things that are new with new. It's great. There's a lot of options because new is fun. New is great. I don't know if New Jersey will make either of Kyle's or I's list. That's coming up in the 1 o'clock hour today. And in the 2 o'clock hour, what everyone's been waiting for, we're going to break down Colorado to the Pac-12. What does that mean for Colorado? What does that mean for the Big 12? What does that mean for the Pac-12? And what other potential future expansion could hit the Big 12 conference? All of that coming up today on Mic'd Up. You can join us 9429. You can also hop in the comment section of our YouTube live stream because we are live on YouTube as we are with every show. YouTube.com. Sports on 580 is that YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it as we continue our march towards 300 subscribers. You can jump in the comment section in the chat of the YouTube live stream as well. But where we begin this hour, Jake had a chance to sit down with MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy and MIAA Media Days. It was a fun conversation between Jake and the commish, and they went over a lot of stuff, just the state of the conference, how things are going, some of the fresh additions, Lincoln leaving the MIAA, some of those different things that they're doing, and a little bit also on if there's going to be future expansion. Mike Racy discussed a little bit upon his release of some of the new changes and everything that's been going on with the MIAA, that there's a longer-term plan for potential expansion, potential new members, where they might move. We've discussed it a little bit on this show. Jake and I have discussed it plenty a bit off air about who could be added and when and things like that. That's the crux of what's so intriguing. But the entire state of the conference is also just such an interesting thing to get to. So let's take it out and listen to Jake's conversation at MIAA Media Days earlier this week with MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy.
Mike Racy in 3, 2, 1. All right, Mike, lots to get to when it comes to kind of the State of the Union that you gave earlier today at MIAA Football Media Days. First a lot of talk, conference time. Hey, it's not just the Big 12, it's not Pac-12, it's the Division II side of things. You brought in Arkansas Fort Smith. Biggest reason for that is
Arkansas Fort Smith and adding a state to our footprint made a lot of situated in Northwest Arkansas. We have a lot of, especially for our southern schools, a lot of alumni, a lot of former students at Northwest Arkansas corridor, a lot of our crew in that area in Northwest Arkansas. Fort Smith is a growing community. Fort Smith is a regional public university, looks a lot like all of our other institutions. But, we added Rogers State, we added Newman. I think as a conference, we could probably get up to as many as 4 without football. Arkansas Fort Smith, a good Division II member, competitive in a number of sports, and just made sense geographically.
Do they have a travel partner? Like that's one thing, that a bunch of us, and fans and coaches and broadcasters look, Washburn and Emporia travel partners, Rogers and Northeastern, Central Oklahoma and Newman. With Lincoln leaving, Central Missouri really doesn't have a travel partner. Who how do you kind of look at the travel partner?
That's still a work in progress. I think Central Missouri is going to have a new travel partner. Washburn might have a new travel partner. They may be together, right there on I-70. Arkansas Fort Smith, it'll probably be Northeastern State. That means that probably Rogers State and UCO would be travel partners. So there's a reshuffling that is taking place. We have a championships advisory committee that's
then a Newman Emporia State type of deal.
Yeah, Newman Emporia, Hayes and Kearney would still be together. Northwest, Missouri Western, but that hasn't been decided. There's a few different blueprints, but still work in progress.
You also mentioned in your release that this is kind of maybe just the beginning. So what's the vision here when it comes to that? You mentioned maybe divisions when it comes to that. You also just said, maybe 4 teams without football. Right now we're at 3. What's kind of the foresight and the prognostication? Because that's the one thing in conference realignment. It's not what's happening today, it's what's happening tomorrow, what's happening 3 years from now.
Yeah, so our presidents, to their credit, and it's unanimous, and that's who I work for. I go to a board meeting and I'm surrounded by 14 college presidents. That's who I report to, and they're unanimous in their feeling that the MIAA has to continue to grow. And their belief is you're either shrinking or growing. In today's world, whether you're leading a university and you're talking about student enrollment, or you're a president managing the affairs of a conference, the belief is you're either going to be losing members or trying to add members, and they want to play offense. And so really, I think the near term vision is to try to get to 16. With Fort Smith coming in for Lincoln, we're at 11 football and 3 without. And really my goal is to try to find another football school and maybe another non-football school to bring us to 12 football and 4 without in the next couple of years. There's a lot of work that goes into that. Obviously, the natural prospects in growth are current Division II members in our footprint or near our footprint, and those schools have to see a value in why they would move to the MIAA. And some of those conversations are taking place. I also, Jake, I believe that there's still a lot of disruption that's going to take place at the Division I level. They're still trying to figure out what does it mean in this new world to be a Division I member? What are the commitments you must make as an institution? And I believe there are going to be a few schools that are at the D1 level now that might need to find a new home. And if it's the right geographic fit, the MIAA would be a good place for some of those schools to come and try to compete. And so we'll see how things shake out in the next couple of years. But that's really the goal, is to find another football and another non-football to bring us to 16 members, 12 with football and 4 without.
When it comes to kind of the future of the non-conference football schedule, I know I was a big proponent of the non-conference game. Loved going to Colorado Mines. It was a lot of fun. If you get back to 12, still going to be kind of the same situation, round robin format. If you get to that 12,
we're going to go to divisions, and we've made a breakthrough with our coaches, I think, that understand the importance of having a non-conference game when it comes time for the football committee to make evaluations, who's in the playoffs and how you get seated. So I'm fairly confident that we've got the votes at the president's level, the AD level, support from our coaches, that when we go to 12, we'll go into divisions, a North and South division. And I mentioned there may be a natural break there with I-70. And it might mean Emporia and Washburn are in different divisions. But we would be able to work that out on who you play across the division as part of your schedule. The divisional schedule would look something like you would play your 5 divisional opponents. You'd play 4 across the division, and then you'd have an opportunity at the beginning of the season to play 2 non-conference games. That's kind of what we're working towards. And if we find another member to come in and go to North-South, that's probably where we'd end up.
Talking with Mike Racy, the commissioner of the MIAA, and that's the big thing with conference realignment happening now is teams not playing each other. I would be crushed if Washburn doesn't play Emporia State. Hopefully, if there is the divisions, got no problem with that. But there is a crossover guaranteed one. I mean, they even do that in the Big Ten. They even do that everywhere. Whereas, hey, these 2 schools have to play each other.
Yeah, there'd be a rivalry consideration on building out that non-divisional schedule. Pitt State and Northwest might find themselves in different divisions, but I think certainly fans want to see those schools, whether it's on campus or in Kansas City, match up. So obviously that would be part of the consideration when we break into divisions. Who do we need to protect in the schedule for each school?
When it comes to kind of the college football playoff for Division II, I've been very vocal on this. I think the MIAA is just on the wrong side of it. You'll never hear another time where I'll say Emporia State got screwed, but they did. I mean, they went 8-3, and judging them with the performances of Northwest and Pitt against those 2 schools, how much do you think could this new alliance that got together, yourself and a bunch of the other conferences trying to make a big change? Credit to you guys and everybody to get the ball rolling, because it has to start somewhere, and it kind of looks like this might be the place.
I think so too. We've got 7 conferences that are in. And really I think the power behind the alliance is that for the first time we have college presidents that are around the table. Every conference in the alliance is represented by the commissioner, an athletic director, and the president. Nowhere else in the NCAA do we have those 3 individuals around the table talking about a sport. So the alliance creates that. And while we don't have any governance authority or legislative responsibility, people will listen to the alliance because of the presidential engagement and involvement. We have another meeting tomorrow. One of the things that I think is going to come out of tomorrow's meeting is the alliance going on record with a letter to the NCAA from the presidents in the alliance saying that we need to expand the Division II football playoffs. We need to go from 28 to 32. We're leaving teams like Emporia State that deserve to be in the playoffs at home. And so, that's the opportunity the alliance has in the president's taking a position, being unified behind that position, and then communicating that to the football committee or to the NCAA office.
Outside of the on-field product and everything like that, big talk on the national level, NIL. I mean, we're talking about Congress getting involved. What's kind of the status, at least for Division II, with the NIL?
NIL is a big deal in Division II. A lot of people don't realize that. In Division I's kind of given NIL among a lot of fans, I think, a bad name. They see or hear about, student athletes putting their transfer or whatever out to bid, and student athletes driving some pretty nice cars or things like that. That's not what's happening in Division II. As you know, a lot of our Division II student athletes are partial scholarship student athletes. That means that they're having to figure out how to pay for school just like every other student. And an NIL deal at the Division II level is a mom and pop grocery store or restaurant that may be able to give a student athlete a couple $100 a month to do a few tweets to endorse the restaurant. It might be a student athlete being able to do a camp or a clinic. It might be a student athlete, a golfer, tennis, being able to teach lessons. That's all money that student athlete can now use to help pay for education. That's what's happening at the Division II level. And I'm proud that there's a lot of activity at the in the MIAA. A lot of our schools are doing a lot of this because they know it makes a difference for a student athlete on being able to pay for school without a loan or having to take out a student loan. So that's kind of the landscape of NIL in Division II.
I always say the true definition of a student athlete is the Division II player, not the Division I athlete. It's the true Division II world, especially when it comes to food. The training table is such a big deal at the D1 level, not at D2. Commissioner, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much for the information.
You bet. Good to see you again.
That is Jake's conversation earlier this week with MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy. There's a lot of good stuff there. A lot to take away, a little bit on what's going to happen with Arkansas Fort Smith joining the MIAA. They're coming in. Lincoln's going out. The MIAA is going to eventually get set at 12 teams and then go to divisions, which I think will be interesting, and it will make some good things for the schedule. You have your 2 6-team divisions. You play 5 teams in your division, potentially then play 4 teams, outside your division, things like that. I find it fascinating that the split might be an I-70 base split. Which if so, Washburn and Emporia would probably end up in 2 separate divisions, which feels weird. But if that's the way the numbers, I'm always cool. When it comes to, this is a weird thing. When it comes to divisions in sports, I want them, I like geographic conferences and I like geographical splits with divisions. Division I has thrown that out the window. I don't care anymore. Like, that's been destroyed so much. I'm never going to get that back. D2, we still get it. So I'm cool with, pick a geographical landmarker, and if that's the landmarker that can kind of give us a solid split here, let's do it. Even if it feels weird, make it work. And then you have protected rivalries, and we still get Washburn Emporia every year. That just becomes the cross-division protected rivalry. We still get Washburn Emporia every year. Everyone's happy because Washburn will probably be set up with all their usual different people and teams and whatnot. I'm intrigued at what the potential other additions can be for expansion. Back when Arkansas Fort Smith was announced as a new member back at the end of June, in the official statement, Mike Racy did say that the MIAA CEO so approved a plan for steady and strategic membership growth during the next few years, and this was kind of the start. I'm still always intrigued how that's going to go. I'm glad. I'm still, I will always say I'm still very new to all this Division II stuff. This has been kind of these past 2 years has been my foray into this level of athletic competition. I've moved fully with Jake. The way that Division II does playoff systems is broken. And it's not fair. And I'm also happy to see that the MIAA and Mike Racy are part of that charge to try and fix a very broken system with the way that divisions are done, with the way divisions are set, and some of those things like that. With the way the playoffs are done and the way the playoffs are broken down, the very regionalization of it all. It's not great, and does not get you the best product, and it often does not get you the best teams in the best positions to win those championships and best teams to make the playoffs, like Emporia State lost out in the playoffs last year. That shouldn't have happened. They and all those things that were happening there. So great conversation with Jake and Mike Racy. Always good to hear from the commish and seeing what's going on at the MIAA and at the Division II level as a whole. We're going to take a timeout. Coming up next, everyone loves the list. Best things with new on Honor National New Jersey Day. Is it a little weird and odd? Yes. Should it be fun? It very much will be. That's coming up next here on Mic'd Up. It is time for Everyone Loves the List here on Mic'd Up as I bring in my good man Kyle Matthew to join me. Kyle, it's National New Jersey Day, a thing you and I both discovered like an hour ago exists. And because of that, it's very fun. We've decided to do our list of things that have the word new in them because it's fun. And that's what this segment is all about. Kyle, what's your number 4?
Number 4, I've got the New Year's Eve holiday.
Ooh, okay.
I picked that over New Year's Day. I like New Year's Eve a little
Okay.
more of a party scenario.
Okay, that's fair. Number 4 for me, I'm a nerd, and so there's going to be some nerdy things in this list. One of the fantastic video games, Fallout New Vegas. Best game in the series. It's very, very fun.
Number 3, sorry, New Jersey. I've got the city of New Orleans. I've never been
go.
there, but I definitely want to go. I've heard very good things.
That's New Orleans is I would say is very fun. I also do want to go sometime. Number 3 for me, let's go pro wrestling. The New Day, fantastic faction. They're great. They're awesome. They rock, one might say.
Number 2, I've got the TV show New Girl.
That's a great pull. That is a great pull.
I was
New Girl's a great show.
just watching a couple episodes
Show.
recently. It hits every time.
It does. It's always fantastic. Number 2 for me, the first food item on the list, a good New York cheesecake. Love a good New York cheesecake. Cheesecake is so good.
Number 1 for me, I'm also a nerd, so top of the list, Star Wars: A New Hope.
Oh, yes. I didn't think of that. Oh, that's a great pull. That's an honorable mention for me. My number 1, though, is I think something not enough people think about. It's the Newfoundland Retriever. Newfies are one of the best dogs on this planet because they are gigantic, fluffy, good boys. The Newfoundland Retriever, the Newfie, should be at the top of so many people's lists. So many things because they are a fantastic, very, very fun working dog, and they're just great and happy, and they're just adorable. So, number 1 for me, Newfoundland Retriever. What are your best new things? Let us know on the text line, 785-272-9429, or in the comment section of our YouTube live stream as well. We're going to take a time out. When we come back, the MLB Trade Deadline. We'll give you the updates and see what's going on with the Royals as well. Welcome back into Mic'd Up. Freshening this 1 o'clock hour of the show. We have a couple of additions to favorite new things. Vance has added a new car smell. The new car smell is the lead. Vance, I'll give you that. And then very specific, New Hampshire in autumn. Vance's favorite state to visit. Vance, I've never been to New Hampshire, nor have I been to New Hampshire in autumn, but this sounds like it could be fun as well. Mark also adds New Moon or New Blood from the WCW, which was also awesome. Great responses. If you've heard thoughts on your favorite things with new in them, let us know on the text line 785-272-9429 or in the comment section of the YouTube live stream, youtube.com. Sports on 580 is that YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it. You can jump in the comment section as well. We are, and I want to get this math right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5! Count them. Like Booker T. 5 times. 5 days away from the MLB trade deadline. The trade deadline for Major League Baseball is August 1st, 4 p.m. Eastern, I believe, or 5 p.m. Eastern. Probably 5 p.m. Eastern, more than like it. I have to look it up. I'm sorry. This has already been thrown all the way off. I need to know when the actual deadline is. I don't need every deal. I need to know when the MLB, give me the thing I care about. Yeah, I know it's August 1st. What time? I believe 5 or 4 p.m. Eastern. One of the two. Either way, Jake and I get a full show on that Tuesday before the deadline's over. That's all I know for sure because we had it last year. Either way, the trade deadline's 5 days away. With that, we've talked a lot about what will the Royals potentially do. We have spent a lot of time discussing guys that could be traded. Aroldis Chapman's already been moved. We talked about if Scott Barlow should be moved. Will he be moved? We think he'll be moved at some point. I've discussed a little bit, Nicky Lopez being a guy. There's other dudes, the veterans who could get moved. I thought Amir Garrett was going to be one of those guys, but he just got straight up DFA'd. And it'll be seeing what the Royals could potentially do for their team. But then, Annie Rogers of MLB.com, the only real Royals beat writer that exists right now. So Annie's doing just incredible work, getting literally the only person getting a lot of this info out. She put together in her Royals Beat newsletter 3 players that she would say are probably their most tradable candidates. And more importantly, what would they get? And more importantly, there's actually, a couple more, but 3 main players. The first is obviously Scott Barlow. According to Annie Rogers, Barlow is the club's trade priority, and several teams are still interested despite his results this past week where he has struggled. He has 1 more year of club control beyond this season, which helps his value, and he's making $5.3 million this year and will get a little bit of raise in his 3rd year of arbitration next year. Now, there is going to be some cases, as Annie notes, where opposing teams might not give up as much because his fastball velocity has dropped this year. He's had some shaky outings, and his splits aren't as great as they've used to be. However, there are still teams that want him, still some teams that have talked about him, and he should get moved. I am still of the opinion Scott Barlow will get moved. Also, real quick, thank you, Vance. It's 6 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, Vance. I don't know why nothing on the internet quickly told me that. 6 p.m. Eastern. So we get till 5 o'clock. Oh, that's perfect. Great timing. 580 Sports Talk gets some fun with that as well. Back to the point here outside of it's now 6 p.m. Eastern for the trade deadline on August 1st. Nonetheless, I know a lot of people with Scott Barlow's shaky outings have been kind of, a few segments of the fan base have, kind of lost their mind and got a little bit of, should have traded him sooner. Now you'll get nothing. And who wants him? The Colorado Rockies got an actual prospect for Pierce Johnson. A dude demonstrably worse than Scott Barlow with a shorter track record of success than Scott Barlow. And the Braves gave the Rockies an actual real prospect. It was like their number 18th prospect, something like insanely high. But they got a real player, not like some random single A lottery ticket. The Royals can get something for Scott Barlow. And what that will be, I don't know. How big that'll be, I don't know. But I'm still confident someone's going to take Scott Barlow. And I'd like to think the Royals are going to be intelligent enough that they will trade Scott Barlow. Another trade option that Annie Rogers puts in her newsletter is Carlos Hernandez, which I've heard this a lot, and I am fully entrenched on the fence about Carlos Hernandez. His ERA is under 4, throws well over 100 miles an hour, a nice split changeup, nice breaking ball. And more importantly, he's not a free agent until 2028. So you would get, if you acquire Carlos Hernandez, 4 years of club control. And that's where I kind of go back and forth on Hernandez. On the one hand, you could get a good return for Carlos Hernandez. A reliever that throws as hard as he does with his over 30% strikeout rate, his walk rate's really plummeted because the Royals have figured something out with his club control, which also indicates cost control. That's a guy a team could really use to really strengthen their bullpen, not just for this year, but for several years. So on the one hand, I see why the Royals could consider trading him. He's really going to be a really nice asset, and he's a player you could get a potential sizable return for. The problem is his control, his club control, is another reason why I'm kind of the team don't trade him. Because, listen, we can all be mired in how bad the Royals are right now, and we can be stuck in the moment. But in my opinion, it's better to believe at some point things get better. At some point, they climb out of this hole and they're not the worst team in baseball. Whether that's true or not, we can argue back and forth. I have to believe it'll get better because if not, what are we doing here? So in that case, if you think the Royals can compete by 2027 in 4 years, which, that's bleak. But the Astros at one point, granted, they did a lot better drafting and development, but they went from the worst team in baseball in 2014, one of the worst teams in baseball in 2014, to winning a World Series 3 years later. My point is it's not impossible to say by 2027 the Royals are doing something good. If that's the case, Carlos Hernandez could be one of your biggest weapons on that team. And so that's where you go back and forth on whether you should. The important thing from the writer she notes here is that the sources have indicated to her the Royals are not shutting the door on teams that inquire about him, but they've let them know it might take a lot. They aren't inclined to move him, but depends on what the offer is, they could. And to me, that just speaks to if someone blows them out of the water, offering them a lot of good pieces for Carlos Hernandez, they might make a move. And then she mentions a couple of other players that could all get moved. Some interest that could be at different levels here. And we'll kind of run through each of these players here and essentially go over, is it realistic that they get moved? Is it kind of a long shot they get moved? And what you could kind of get. First one is Nicky Lopez. Good defensive versatility, has some speed, and his on-base percentage is 322. I don't know if enough people realize that. Nicky Lopez is only hitting 213. He's got a 322 on-base percentage. That'll play. As a defensive replacement, if a team is acquiring Nicky Lopez because they need a bat for the lineup, that's probably not what they're going to go for. But if a contender wants a late-inning defensive replacement who can get on base and give them some speed, you're not going to get a lot for Nicky Lopez, but you'd get a little bit. I mean, the Dodgers literally just acquired Kike Hernandez for that exact reason. There are teams out there that could do it. So I don't know if Nicky Lopez gets moved, but I see what his market is as well. The same kind of thing works for Edward Olivares, who could be a potential trade candidate. Teams, according to sources, have inquired about Edward Olivares. He'd be a good right-handed bat off the bench. I've long said Edward Olivares as like a bottom of your lineup hitter on a contending team who can usually mainly DH is a useful piece. I know we all get stuck with other things with him, but the thing is, Edward Olivares can hit. He cannot field, but he can hit in a contending team. Maybe they want that. Who knows? And then another name that I'm becoming a little bit bigger on that could be moved is Ryan Yarbrough, which if the Royals get anything for Ryan Yarbrough, I take back every bad thing I said about that signing. Because since his injury, he's pitched very well. He gives you options as both a starter and a reliever. He can do either. His contract this year was like $3 million. You'd owe him like $1 million if you acquired him. So it'd be super cheap to get him. And more importantly, he's pitched well. Ryan Yarbrough, since coming back from his injury, and I'm going to get this pulled up here, because he's the newest guy who's kind of hit the trade rumor market that I really think you could get. Again, not a lot. He's older. It's 1 year of control. It is not a lot is what you'd get for him. But his overall stats on the year, 3-5 with a 4.70 ERA. But as I get this pulled up here, since coming back from that major injury where he had the facial lacerations, which was just terrifying. In those 3 starts, he's had 6 innings, 1 run, 5 2/3 innings, 3 runs, and he left with an injury. 6 innings, 1 run. So he potentially could have had 3 quality starts had his calf not cramped up. And then even in that start, he got hurt. It was 5 2/3 innings, 1 run. So that's a guy with a 2.55 ERA in his last 17 2/3 innings. And moreover, his FIP, fielding independent pitching, which again in short is just an ERA-esque metric based on things you can control, is only 3.23. So showing he's not doing what he's doing with a lot of luck or anything like that. Throws a lot of strikes, has only walked 2 batters in that 17 2/3 innings. I don't know who would take him. I don't know what that would look like. I don't even know what return you could get for Ryan Yarbrough as a 31-year-old lefty who is just very crafty and gets the job done. I don't know what you could get for him, but you could probably get something. He's not going to change the fortunes of a team. But let's, the Astros. I've touched on it a few times. The Astros need pitching help. Their pitching is stretched thin. You're telling me with the offense that they have, they couldn't use Ryan Yarbrough to pick up a start every 5th day or be kind of a swingman reliever? You're telling me they couldn't use that? They could. Tell me the Rangers couldn't use a little bit of help from Yarbrough? They could. So I think there's still something there. Zach Greinke's been mentioned, but I just don't really see it. And then Jordan Lyles, I've talked about. You never know, but unless the Royals really pay down that salary, I don't see so as well. So there's just some players, that the Royals could move. I don't know if they will. I don't know when that moment would be. Scott Barlow is the only one that I would say confidently on this day is getting moved. But there's a lot of guys that I could see if the Royals are, if JJ McCullough is serious about being transactional, to doing the thing that Dayton Moore always said he was going to do but never did. And let's be transactional. Move players for others. Build up your system. Get players on this team that can help you win. There's options. And there's things they can do. With the trade deadline, though, there are 2 trades I want to get to that happened yesterday that kind of spark a little bit of movement along the trade deadline steam, pick it up a little bit. Also because they do affect 2 American League Central teams. The smaller deal of the day was the Los Angeles Dodgers acquired Ahmed Rosario from the Cleveland Guardians. He had an off day yesterday, so he did not play in the game between the Royals and the Guardians, but he has been traded from the Guardians to the Dodgers. I had a feeling it wasn't a strong one that Ahmed Rosario's time with the Dodgers was the Guardians was kind of coming to an end. He's a free agent in 2024. His defensive metrics have cratered with the banning of the shift. He's kind of been exposed with limited range. He hits really well, but the vet that the Guardians can put Andres Jimenez at short if they wanted to, with how well he's been hitting, and his defensive abilities are much better. They have some potential prospects to put it short. I felt like Ahmed Rosario was a guy who eventually would get traded. I just did not think it would be this fast. But he is gone. Noah Syndergaard is the player coming back to the Guardians. So yes, that Noah Syndergaard, who has just, since his injury with the Mets, cannot get right. There's an ERA over 7 for the Dodgers, currently injured. He is going back to Cleveland as they will now take a flyer to see if they can make anything out of Noah Syndergaard because they need pitching help. So potentially at some point this year, I don't think the Royals play the Guardians anymore. I think that cleaned up their series with the Guardians. We're about to find out because now I'm curious. And we have time. We have time to satiate my curiosity. I do not know if the Royals play the Guardians anymore this season. I can get the schedule up here. I can now. Bum, bum, bum. Yes, the Royals have one more series with Cleveland coming up in September. Who knows? Maybe Noah Syndergaard is up with the Guardians and playing by that time. It'd be kind of funny just to see Noah Syndergaard pitch against the Royals one more time. But that was that deal. And then the biggest news of the day came late last night from the Los Angeles Angels. First, they reported Shohei Ohtani off the trade market. They ain't trading him. He's staying, which I like. Truly do it. And then the Angels doubled down on that as the Los Angeles Angels completed a trade with the Chicago White Sox as the Angels have acquired Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez from the Chicago White Sox in exchange for a couple of prospects, including catcher Kai Pitcher, Kai Bush. Got to remember positions. I like it. If I'm listen, my opinion on the Angels and Ohtani was don't trade him. You will not get fair trade value for Shohei Ohtani. I know everyone's saying, but then you're just letting him walk and you're getting nothing. Fine. Who cares? You will not get fair trade value and you will alienate what fans you have by trading him away. Instead, keep him, buy at the deadline, and try and win. Because if you trade Shohei Ohtani, you have punted any chance if you're the Angels at re-signing him. Whatever slim chance the Angels have right now at re-signing Shohei Ohtani, because he has said he wants to go play for a winning team. He wants to win. And we all know the Angels haven't been that. They've not been had a winning record with Shohei Ohtani on their team. With all that, you need to find a way to persuade him to give you a chance. And acquiring Giolito, acquiring Reynaldo Lopez, trying to win. You are showing Ohtani you're willing to try. You're willing to give it an effort. And maybe that convinces him. Maybe it doesn't. But at the very least, Shohei Ohtani will now return your calls. Now when this offseason comes, Shohei Ohtani will at least listen. Even if this blows up in the Angels' face and they miss the playoffs yet again, they haven't been in the playoffs since 2014. It's moving on. If they miss this year, it'll be their 9th season in a row without making the playoffs. Even if all that happens, you can at least have a meeting with Shohei, with his representation, and say, hey, I know it's not been great. I know we've struggled. I know we have yet to, we can't put this consistent winner together. And I know you want to win. But look what we just did at the trade deadline. We got players to try and win with you. We are going to be committed to continue to try to win. I don't know if that'll work. Honestly, I don't think it will. Because I don't think the Angels are going to be able to make enough of a push to get into the playoffs this year. And even if they do, I just don't think Shohei's staying. I think Dodgers or Seattle is where Shohei is going. He wants to stay on the West Coast more than likely. It's a better spot for him. And he really likes Seattle, the city. I know that kind of flies in the face of the winning thing, but I mean, Seattle's rotation, you add Shohei Ohtani to that rotation, put his bat in the lineup, maybe something there. But overall, I respect the Angels for giving it a shot. It is far more respectable than curling up in the fetal position and throwing in the towel. So that is some trades affecting the AL Central. No more Lucas Giolito in the Central, no more Reynaldo Lopez, and no more Ahmed Rosario. For what it's worth, the next time the Royals will play the Chicago White Sox, we will be on Monday, September the 4th. So would have been a long time until the Royals would potentially face Lucas Giolito, but now they definitely will not face Giolito the rest of this year because they've already played their 2 series with the Angels. They've already played the series with the Dodgers as well, so they will not see Ahmed Rosario anymore as well. Hopefully the Royals can make some move with the trade deadline. We will see as it goes. Again, they are off today. There's no Royals game coming up today on 580 WIBW. They are back in action coming up this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, as the Minnesota Twins come to town as they begin a 6-game homestand with 3 against the Minnesota Twins and then 3 against the New York Mets starting next week as well. That is it for the 1 o'clock hour. Mic'd up. 2 o'clock hour coming up next. It is time for the final hour of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fultoncaster here with you. I want to thank all of you for joining me this afternoon. As real quick, we have a trade. It is not a Royals trade. It's a different trade. But old friend Carlos Santana has been traded away from the Pittsburgh Pirates to the Milwaukee Brewers for shortstop prospect Johnny Severino. That's it. Nothing big, nothing crazy, but old friend Carlos Santana is on his way to Milwaukee. It is the final hour of Mic'd Up. Like I said, thank you all for joining me on this afternoon's edition of the show with no Jake LeBon. Jake will be back on Monday, so it is just me and you and everybody listening for today and for tomorrow. Coming up in the 2 o'clock hour of the program to wrap things up, we're going to finally get into the biggest news from last night. I thank you all for being patient with me. We're getting into the biggest news of last night. Colorado is coming back to the Big 12. It has been announced. It has been decided. Any votes are just formalities. Colorado is back in the Big 12 starting in 2024. We're going to look at how that came together, what that means for the Big 12, what that means for the Pac-12, what it means for Colorado, and what next steps could take place for Big 12 expansion. Well, let's get a little start bench cut. We're going to look at the latest news from the Chiefs and around the NFL as well. You can join in on the conversation on our text line, 785-272-9429. You can also jump in the comment section of the YouTube live stream. Go to youtube.com. Sports on 580 is the YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it. You can jump in the comment section of this live stream and watch any of our past videos as well. All of our old live streams for every past edition of the show is up there as well. Plus, we got some YouTube shorts out there. We got some different recaps and breakdown videos from other games in the past couple of seasons. So anything you want to watch, you can all find right there on our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. But the biggest news of the day, yesterday at least, and moving into today, because there's been a lot of fallout today. Colorado is back in the Big 12. This is per Brett McMurphy of the Action Network. Colorado is leaving the Pac-12 to return to the Big 12 in 2024, according to his sources. Colorado will receive the full Big 12 share of $31.7 million from the ESPN and Fox media deal. Reportedly, the Buffaloes have left because of the stability in the Big 12 and the uncertainty of the Pac-12. The announcement from the school itself, even more so, officially came today. The Buffaloes are back in the Big 12. There's a lot to break down with this, including different pieces of this. Part of this, from the financial perspective, is the fact that Colorado will get the full share of the media rights deal. Because the Big 12 planned for this in the deal that the Big 12 worked out with ESPN and Fox, we discussed this a little bit. They have what is called a pro rata clause, to where if the Big 12 added more Power 5 programs, so not other teams from the G5s, any other teams from the Power 5, that they would get folded into the deal. ESPN and Fox would pony up more money so that the new school or schools could receive the proper full share. Now, to my understanding, if Big 12 added any G5 schools, those schools would not get a full share, and there would have to be a different breakdown of kind of the way they're distributing the money at that point. But because of the pro rata and the contract, Colorado gets the full share, which is absolutely awesome. So Colorado, because the part of this I maybe love more than anything, is that this is stemming from the fact that the Pac-12 is on shaky ground. Colorado just being like, all right, man, Pac-12, y'all are, George Kliavkoff and all that. You guys can't get a media deal done. You can't figure out what's going on with this conference. We're out. We're done. We're finished. See you later. We're going back home. So first things first, welcome back, Colorado. I think I speak for many, many people in Big 12 country when I say, welcome home. This is where you belong. Like, I have never had ill feelings towards Colorado. It's a beautiful school in a beautiful part of the country. Their athletic teams have experienced some great success. Like, Colorado football in the 90s was hopping. That was good stuff. And a few little runs here and there in the 2000s era Big 12 before they went to the Pac-12. Basketball is usually semi-competitive. Other Olympic sports usually pretty good as well. But it's right. It's right that Colorado is in a conference with KU, with K-State, with Iowa State. This is where they belong. It never felt right when Colorado left for the Pac-12. That never felt proper to me. It always felt out of place. And it didn't go well for them. They experienced some success, but not a lot. And we can say, people can say what they want about, does the administration really care about athletics and what kind of a financial revenue can they bring to the Big 12, and how can they fit in at that point? We can go on about that, and that's fine. But they belong. They fit perfectly in the Big 12 and what the Big 12 is trying to be and what they will be going forward. They fit perfectly. So above all else, welcome home, Buffaloes. I'm so happy. I am so happy. Got text from 75 on the text line. Is also so happy Colorado's back. Some of their favorite KU football memories of all time of Colorado. I want to find this game. We're going off on a tangent already, and if you are ever used to me leading this show, you know tangents are what we do. I want to find the year. There is a KU football game where KU had a wicked comeback against Colorado. That is from some of my earliest fandom of sports and football, and KU football specifically. That lives in my brain, and I'm trying to remember the year. 2010. Thank you. That's why I love the text line. Yeah, 2010. Scored 35 straight points in the fourth quarter. That game was awesome, and I remember it so well because it involved Colorado. It involved our friends out west. That game ruled. That game was legendary. That game was amazing. I've pulled it up here because I had to. 52-45, KU beat Colorado. They at the fourth quarter, at 14:52 of the fourth quarter, it was 45-17 Colorado. And KU won the game. That's awesome. That's great. That's cool. That's an iconic KU memory, for me at least, and for partly with the text line here. That is all stemmed with Colorado. So them being back just on the basis of what feels proper, it's Colorado. It's what it should be, is this. This is what it should be for the Big 12. So on that front alone, from just what feels, because sometimes when it comes to these realignments, some of the realignment feels wrong. It doesn't feel like USC and UCLA to the Big 10. That's good for them. We'll get them some money, whatever. It feels wrong for a California school to be in the Big 10. It just doesn't feel right. And at times, some realignment, even with the Big 12, felt off. Like West Virginia being in the Big 12 feels kind of odd. UCF, I mean, I'm happy they're here. But, a footprint in Florida feels kind of odd. Colorado just feels right. And so they are officially back. They are going to be back in the Big 12 starting in 2024. That is going to be the plan for Colorado, which means the Big 12 will be at 13 members. 13. If that sounds odd to you, it's because it's an odd number. But I doubt the Big 12 stops at 13 because right now you're at 14 with the 4 new schools you added, and you still have the traitors of OU and Texas. OU and Texas are gone next year. See you later. Bye. Get out of here. Don't let the door hit you with the good Lord split you on the way out. So you're back down to 12, and we were the proper Big 12. And I'm cool with it. You're always allowed to have more teams than your conference's number is. You shouldn't have less. Like 10 teams in the Big 12 felt weird. But 13 teams in the Big 12, that's fine. To me, the expansion's not done. You can't have an odd-numbered conference because it makes everything awkward. It doesn't let you split into pods properly. Wouldn't let you split into divisions properly if you went divisions. There's just a lot of issues. So, on one front, as we kind of try to work through and delve between everything that's going to happen, because this domino of KU and I have KU on the brain right now, of Colorado coming to the Big 12, this domino has a lot of other effects. The first one is this: who else is coming to the Big 12? I'm intrigued by that. There are some that are saying, and text from 785 points this out as well, there are sources saying that Washington and Oregon are meeting with Big 12 officials. That's been kind of here and there. We'll see what ends up happening with Washington and Oregon. The fact of the matter is, beyond if they're meeting with Big 12 officials specifically, Oregon called a last-minute meeting for their Board of Regents, for their higher-ups. that is confirmed. Who it's with can be speculated. Oregon did call a meeting today. I don't know if Oregon would be the team to come in. I wouldn't be that surprised. It's always kind of like they go back to do they really fit? They kind of fit, but also I'd take them. But Oregon and Washington are obvious options. If they want to come, who knows? We've talked about the schools out in the desert. Utah is always potentially there. Arizona, Arizona State, those schools are there. I think the Big 12 to start off will add at least 3 more in addition to Colorado to get to 16. Arizona's a good fit. Arizona State's a good fit. Utah's a pretty good fit. Washington and Oregon would also be perfectly fine fits. I'm not against Oregon State at this point. They don't bring you a lot. And that's not to try and insult our good friends out in Corvallis. But they just don't, who's out here being a fan of Oregon State athletics? But still, I mean, if they wanted to come party, sure. Same thing with our friends at Washington State. Pullman, Hive, stand up. I don't know how much you bring, but sure, come for the party. The fact is, I think the Big 12 might try and add 3 more Pac-12 schools. There's a chance it could happen. I don't know what it would be. The Pac-12 is on shaky, shaky ground. And I'm really trying to figure out what they're going to do. And that's kind of the next chapter to this that ties in with Big 12 expansion. The Big 12 is likely adding 3 more teams. At minimum, they're adding 1 more. At minimum, 1 more school's coming with Colorado. They are not staying at 13. I can promise you that. They're not staying at 13. They're going to at least 14. Because they're 14 right now and they have a way for it to work. What that other school will be, who knows? But it will likely probably come from the Pac-12. And if it does, then we're not the Pac-12 down to 8 teams. They still don't have a media deal. George Kliavkoff is trying to say, this is fine. We're okay. Nobody worry about it. It's all good. We were prepared for this. We're going to make some moves. There's been, reports from John Costanzo and other guys who are like, the Pac-12 is now considering, maybe adding a couple G5 teams to build up the numbers. I don't know what the Pac-12 is going to do. What I do know about anything is the Pac-12 is in bad shape. Not just because members are leaving. You can replace that. You can find a spot for that. You can make it work. You can. The Big 12 survived and made it work. They don't have a media rights deal. They still don't have one. And the more instability that's caused because of that lack of a media rights deal is going to lead to more of these things happening, is leading to the fracture and the division inside of the Pac-12. Colorado essentially, more than anything, essentially said, we're leaving because of the instability. We're leaving because we need something stable. We need stable income. We need to know what piece of a pie we're getting. The Big 12 is in a position to where they're going to have, as of now, the 3rd biggest media rights deal. They get the 3rd most money of any conference behind the SEC and the Big 10. That's a perfectly fine spot to be in. And for Colorado, the Pac-12 and reports from all the cronies out there are along the lines of, the Pac-12 is trying to get a deal similar to the Big 12. They want the $37 million a year the Big 12 schools are getting and all that. The problem is trying to get somebody to agree to that. And there's no guarantee you will get that. There's no guarantee you will get a lot of money. So if you're Colorado, which is what they did, they went to just go get stability. And the Big 12 is stable, which is something, I'll be honest, 10 years ago, I didn't think I'd say. When we had 10 years ago, this first round of expansion and realignment and reshuffling, when Nebraska left and Colorado left and all this different stuff that was happening, the Big 12 really looked like it would not survive. And now it will. And not more is it surviving, it is thriving. This was a question posed way back by our good friend Vance on the YouTube comments back when the show started, and I teased we're going to talk about this today. Of any chances of Nebraska returning, and just while we're here on old Big 8, Big 12 teams, Nebraska's never coming back, and that bums me out a little bit. Not that I feel great about Nebraska, not that I like them really at all. Like, I'm indifferent towards Colorado, and, a lot of them makes me like them because they're kind of plucky. They've never been elite, so, because I'm fans of bad teams, I can get along with plucky underdogs. That's why I like Colorado. Nebraska was always good for most parts. Like, I've never really been that fond of Nebraska, and it's more fun to me when they lose. It's really funny to me. But Nebraska's not leaving that Big Ten money. Like, it would feel right for Nebraska to be a Big 12 team again. And with Colorado coming back, that nostalgia feels great. Nebraska's never coming back. And that's fine. Good for them. Good for them. Stay away. Enjoy your Big Ten money. You're all good. You're fine up there. We're fine down here. They're never coming back. But, you think about it, the good old days, but no, Nebraska with that Big Ten money, it's never happened again. So I do wonder, the biggest question out of all of this entirely becomes, who does the Big 12 target next? Who is that next team that the Big 12 tries to bring in? I am fascinated to see who that ends up being and what school that ends up being and what the number looks like. Is it just one school to make it to 14 and then sit at 14 for a little while? Do they add 3 schools to get to 16 starting in 24? So that way, OU and Texas leave, and all of a sudden we got a really, really brand spanking new Big 12 with the 4 original new members of Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, and BYU. And then you add Colorado. They all come in. We're back. We're bigger, better than before. You add more, get bigger. I don't know. If I had to make a guess on who's the next school to join the Big 12, I'm feeling Arizona State. I know we haven't heard a lot of smoke to that in a while, but they just feel like they fit best. I know we've heard the smoke of Oregon potentially going somewhere else more recently. The problem for me with that is Oregon could still go to the Big Ten. Like, the Big Ten could still potentially take them. A school like Arizona State, though, if they want some more stability and want to leave, the Big 12 is a better spot. I will also add, this was discussed, and I want to try. I wish I had saved this. I should have saved this. I believe I can find it, though. Yes, this is from Ross Dellinger, writes about college football for Yahoo Sports. He mentioned, he kind of put up a little piece there with the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and pointed something out. In 2021, so just 2 years ago, when all this was happening, when OU and Texas were leaving and this new round of realignment was coming, the Big 12 proposed a merger to the Pac-12. It was proposed. It was put out there. It wasn't like some pipe dream. It wasn't just maybe a light idea. It was a proposal from the Big 12 to the Pac-12 of what if we came together? What if we joined forces, made us one big conference, kind of spanning the mainly middle part of the U.S. and the western part of the U.S.? We kind of became this whole, back half of the country thing. What if we became this? Pac-12 said no. They said, we're not doing it. In just 2 short years, the Pac-12 might cripple itself and die because it's being slow to respond to everything, and the Big 12 might thrive. That, my friends, is a hell of a blunder. Because imagine if the Pac-12 had taken that deal. We'd have a really big super conference of the Big 12 and the Pac-12. I don't know if BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF be a part of it. Maybe BYU because they're really right in the middle of everything. But it would have been a big 20-plus team conference. Could have had a lot of fun with it, done a lot of great things. Both leagues would have survived. Would have been great. Instead, the Pac-12 is, they are on the ropes right now trying to figure out what they're going to do. And I don't know what they're going to do. George Kliavkoff is trying to put up this stance in this position that everything's fine, that they're going to get a media rights deal done, that they're going to figure out everything that's going on, that they're going to get something done, and they're going to be a stable conference. No sign tells me the Pac-12 won't remain stable. With Colorado now leaving, they are down with everyone leaving to 9 teams. 9. You can't have a conference with that. And yeah, like I said, there are teams that can add. A lot of teams are going to be able to add. They're all from the G5. You know, maybe they add San Diego State after San Diego State then said they were going to go, but then didn't go. Maybe they changed their mind and they go again. I mean, do you just finally, stop sticking your nose up to Boise State and say, Boise State, come play football with us. Come play sports with us. There's options that exist and things they could try and do, but I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to try and do to try and figure this out, because it is a difficult spot for the Pac-12 to be in, and they're now just going to have to scratch and claw and fight to survive as the Big 12 adds Colorado, probably adds even more, and continues to get bigger and stronger. But at the end of the day, welcome home, Colorado. You belong here. You so very much belong in the Big 12, and I'm excited to see the Buffaloes back coming up in 2024. We're going to take a time out. When we come back, it's time for Start, Bench, and Cut here on Mic'd Up. Time for a little Start, Bench, and Cut here on Mic'd Up. I bring in my good man, Kyle Manthey, to help me out with that. The part of the game to where we just sit and essentially rank things on how much we like them or how much we do these things. Kyle, I got a little college football expansion start bench cut for you. The premise here is of these three teams, the most likely to join the Big 12 in 24, or could be like 25 and beyond, but in this next round of the expansion with Colorado, most likely to join the Big 12. Your three teams: Utah, Oregon, Arizona.
They all seem like they're ones that have kind of been mentioned,
Yeah,
connected to the Big 12 a little bit.
That's the move right there.
Right
that
off,
big brain move.
Right off the bat, the one that I thought made the most sense was Utah, just because they're kind of more alone than the other two. They also all Big 12 already added BYU this year, and if they're connected to any school, it'd be BYU kind of. I'll say Oregon second.
Okay.
Because they're also a little bit more individual, and I think the Big 12 would rather have Oregon if they had their choice of any of these three schools.
True.
And then Arizona last. I'd probably like to have Arizona in the Big 12, honestly, but they're kind of connected to Arizona State. They are probably looking for one team, it looks like right now, either one or three. And so them being kind of connected to Arizona State, I don't know if they're going to split off from that, but that probably puts them in the cutting section.
It probably does. I'm with you on that. That's probably about how I'd put them too. Would probably go start Utah, bench Oregon, cut Arizona. Utah just fits. If you bring them in, you get to keep the holy war with BYU. That's a natural rivalry. They fit as a travel partner with BYU a little bit as well. There's just some nice natural fits with what they've already done. Oregon, from a competitiveness standpoint, really fits because they're so competitive in other sports that they really, kind of fit in immediately along with what the Big 12 is trying to do. Arizona geographically makes perfect sense. But I'm with you that if they come, you probably got to bring Arizona State. And I don't know if you want to bring both of them. Because that was thought for a while, was bring the four corner schools: Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Arizona State. Bring those four. You could still do it. Your three extra teams to come with Colorado could just be the rest of the four corners. But I don't know. But I'm about with you with where to kind of slot everyone in there.
If you asked me the order that I'd want them, I'd probably reverse the order. I don't necessarily care for having Utah in any sport. I know maybe they're all right at some things, but
hey, Utah in football has won me a lot of money.
That's true.
I cannot lie. I love Utah for that reason.
Being more of a basketball fan, I would want to have Arizona in there. That'd make the conference even more fun for basketball. And then Oregon's just a big brand in general. It'd be fun to have, but doesn't seem as likely as getting Utah.
It doesn't. I'm with you on the Arizona basketball thing. I've always said you got to find a brand for your conference. And the Big 12 just going with our basketball is going to be elite thing. Adding Arizona would keep that up.
Love that. My start bench cut for you, I was looking at the next match for the Women's World Cup team. Saw it's a Tuesday at 2 a.m. against Portugal. So it inspired me to think of a couple creative times, maybe not the most convenient for sporting events that you're interested in.
Okay.
So their first choice, Friday game at 11 at night.
Okay.
Second choice, we'll do Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And third choice is 2 p.m. on a work weekday.
Oh.
These aren't not a Super Bowl level type game, not like a playoff game, but like a game that
but
you
I'm
want to
interested.
watch.
I want to watch the game.
It's not game 80 of the Royals regular season.
Hey, buddy, I still want to watch those because I'm a sicko. Oh, this is good. This is really good. So this is about to make me probably seem like an absolute sicko. I'm starting the Friday 11 p.m. game. That makes me feel like Brendan is the one I know for sure be right here with me, because I never have to do things on Saturday mornings. I rarely ever have to do something on a Saturday morning. So I'm willing to stay up. 11 o'clock game. It gets done at 2 in the morning. Let's go, baby. Let's go. That's fine. I'll just sleep in the next day. So I'm starting the Friday 11 p.m. game. I'm benching the 2 p.m. workday game, because depending on like this job, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I can sneak a peek at games. We've done that so many times here. We can balance what's going on. So I'll go with that because I can make it work at least. And then, if it's a Royals game, it doesn't affect my job at all because I already have offered it anyways. If it's like, another game, we can balance it. We can make it work. We've done it. We can make it work. Absolutely cut me an 8 a.m. game on a Saturday. No, never. I'm not a morning person. This should surprise none of you. I'm not a morning person. Me and mornings don't get along. Don't ask me to be up at so on that front, the Republic of Ireland women's national team, they had a 7 a.m. kickoff against Canada. I got up for that game because I wanted to watch it. The first time ever the Republic of Ireland women's team has ever made the Women's World Cup. It's cool. It's awesome. I did not watch their first game at 5 a.m. because screw 5 a.m. I made 7 a.m. work. Folks, that stunk. I hated every minute of that. I don't care if it's a Saturday. No, my Saturday, I never want to wake up at 8. I have done that, I think, one time. I've woken up at 8 a.m. for, London games involving my team for the NFL on Sundays. I hate that. I hate that so much. So, no, get that out of here. Get the 8 a.m. crap out of here.
I'm definitely right there with you with starting. 11 o'clock on a Friday, that sounds exciting to me. I wanted to push it back even later if I could, but I don't know if that'd make me sound even more insane.
It kind of does. 11's kind of the line.
Yeah.
I watch Pac-12 after dark. I have put on a Hawaii football game at 11 p.m.
There's just something about it makes it
Great.
more an intimate feeling if there's other people online or whatever, or you're watching it with someone else and it's late at night and it's a live sporting event. It's different than watching a movie late at night because it's live happening right now. I would definitely the next two are tough. I'll go ahead and
balancing the other two are definitely a bit of a pain. It just depends on what kind of person you are.
I'll be safe and I'll start the 8 a.m. or I'll bench the 8 a.m. game on Saturday morning because I can make that work if I really wanted to.
Yeah.
And then just depending on whatever the job is, I don't want to miss a game completely.
Yeah. When I worked at a grocery store, that was my last job before here. There were many sporting events I missed because I had to work during the afternoon and it was a pain. I can't lie to you. I may have found creative ways to watch that game. Some of them getting me in trouble with my boss. But I made it work. But it's very difficult. So I get that idea. I get sliding that in there, but just don't make me get up at 8 a.m. Me and mornings,
understandable.
We don't get along. I used to have to get up at 4 a.m. for work. That stunk. Don't ask me to do mornings. Ask me to do afternoon stuff. That's just the better way to go. Kyle, thank you so much for doing for Start Benching Cut. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, take the latest news notes around the NFL. Wrapping up this edition of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Real quick, once you just answer a few comments we have on our YouTube comment section, because that's what today's all about. First things first, to our main good friend Barbara. Apparently, according to Barbara, Fox is not streaming the USA matches live. So they're on, at least this is what I've experienced, Fox Sports 1, which I know is not part of a standard over-the-air cable package, or some cable packages. That's where they've been being placed, because that's where I've watched them. Outside of that, I really don't know what to tell you. So unfortunately, Barb, if you don't get Fox Sports 1, you might not get to watch them. I don't know why not. It's pretty stupid that the women's national team want to get more run, but at the same time, Fox does stupid stuff all the time. So would not surprise me. USA's next match is against Portugal. That will be coming up, because I'm going to find it real fast. I know Kyle probably literally just told me it, and I've already forgotten it, so I feel kind of bad, but is what it is. 2 a.m. on Tuesday. Thank you, Kyle. Why 2 a.m.? Why? God darn it. Oh, I'm sorry, ladies. I will not be watching that. Because you think I'm going to be able to get up at 2 a.m. Yeah, that game is, funny enough, that game is scheduled to be on Fox, on the terrestrial Fox network. Yeah, I'm not, I might try. Like, I literally might try. But that would take a lot of work for me to get up at 2 a.m. to watch that game. But there's two ways to do it. Real quick, there's two ways to do it. There's two methods. If you're going to stay up and watch a game at those types of hours, especially like a 2 a.m., because I've had a couple different international sporting events I wanted to watch that are at that time. Option one, you power through and you stay up all the way. You don't go to bed first. You just stay up till 2 a.m. You power through till 4 a.m. When that's done, you go to bed afterwards. That's option one. I don't recommend that. That one's very bad and is very painful. You're so strung out. Option two, you take a nap. You get your nap in. You go to bed like 10. You go 10 to 2 a.m. So that's good. 11, 12. That's 4 hours. You watch the game for 2. Then you go sleep from about 4 to 8 a.m. Boom. You get your 8 hours of sleep in 2 4-hour blocks. It's a little tough because you're groggy when you wake up after that first 4-hour period, but it works. Trust me, I've done it. That would be my move if I watch this 2 a.m. match, is I'm going to go to bed a little early and then, wake back up at 2 a.m., watch it from 2 to 4, and then just go right back to bed. It's a dangerous move, but it's a move nonetheless. It's so difficult. And yeah, it's the 14-hour time difference, Barbara. Amen to that. Makes things very difficult for some of these timings. But for the U.S., they will be playing a 2 a.m. match. Also, fun enough, at 2 a.m. at the exact same time, Vietnam and the Netherlands will also be playing. This is a part of, the finales of group stage matches are always played at the exact same time to make sure teams don't, get any chicanery. I talked about this last year with the Men's World Cup as well. There's some chicanery that could happen. And then we also had a question in on the YouTube comment section asking me, how do we feel with the most recent Brewers trade? Brewers, like I said, acquired Carlos Santana. They traded away 18-year-old shortstop Johnny Severino. Johnny Severino not on the top 30 prospect list for the Milwaukee Brewers. He was one of their international signings in 2022. He is 18 years old. It's good for the Brewers. The Brewers needed first base help. They got him. Cool for them. Johnny Severino, a nice lottery ticket for the Pirates as well. A nice little piece for them to try and grab and try and work together. Either way, good for Carlos Santana. He's been having a nice little year, batting .235 with a .321 on base percentage, has 12 home runs, has driven in 53, 45 walks to 69 strikeouts for the Pirates in his age 37 season. This is probably, honestly, a little bit more of a return than the Royals got, because they got Wyatt Mills, and I literally can't even remember the second guy they got back in that trade. I am going to find that out real quick. More importantly, Mills is not even on the team anymore. The Royals have already gotten rid of him. Yes, William Fleming and Wyatt Mills. I don't even think William Fleming is on the Royals. Let me look this up real quick. Because Johnny Severino, well, he's not on any sort of top prospect list. He was a heralded international signing for the Brewers. And him being only 18, they got a lot of time to work with that. That's not bad for just a rental. And Carlos Santana going the way of the Milwaukee Brewers. But for the Royals, good old William Fleming, like I said, I don't think he's on the top 30 list, but I'm going to look that up right now because I'm just now curious. I was correct. He's not. So the Royals got a guy that they're literally not even using anymore in Wyatt Mills and William Fleming, who has done not a lot. It's interesting to see what that is. So probably a bit of a better return than the Royals got for Santana, but Santana was also playing worse when they traded him to Seattle. Let's remember when they traded him to Seattle at the time that year back in 2022. So wow, last year. Years fly by. He was hitting .216 with a 98 OPS plus, but only 4 home runs at that time. So the average was lower. The on-base percentage was higher. The OPS plus was the exact same, but he was slugging way less and a lower OPS. So he was honestly a worse hitter in certain categories. So it makes sense why the Pirates got a tiny bit more than what the Royals got. But overall, it is what it is. So it's a nice little trade for the Brewers. And the Pirates says, ever so slowly, the trade deadline and the trade machine creeps up just a little bit more. I also wanted to just, as we're kind of going through all this, it's just interesting to see what happens. And I want to know, I still wonder what the Royals are going to do on a trade standpoint, because they're in a position to where they have guys to move. They're not big assets. They're not massive assets, but they're still guys they could try and move and try and get something for. And it just comes down to how proactive do the Royals want to be in moving these guys. Who knows? Before we, wrap things up here, I wanted to just take one more look at the Chiefs receivers and what they can do. And more importantly, I already talked about, a lot about Sky Moore and what, talked about Sky Moore, talked about Richie James, talked about Kadarius Toney and what they can all do. I wanted to focus, though, for the final few minutes we have here on Rashee Rice, who, if any players having their kind of training camp stock shoot way up right now, it's Rashee Rice. And part of it is he's put together some very nice camp performances. Now, this is without pads. And, Jake, likes to, point out a little bit how much different is it with the pads with receivers and not. The big moment with pads is definitely the trenches with the offensive line, defensive line. The fact of the matter is, with pads, there is more contact. You don't get as much contact between receivers and DBs without pads on. With pads, you get that. This isn't about getting hit. This is about getting jostled, facing some contact, having to do some hand fighting through your routes. I am fascinated to see what Rashee Rice does with that, because weirdly enough, if Sky Moore can take McCole Hardman's numbers and improve his numbers to that level, which I really think he can, because he was close to those numbers outside of touchdowns for so much of last year, I wonder what he can do going forward. I think Sky can improve. So if so, Rashee Rice just needs to fit those Sky Moore numbers, which is 250 yards receiving And with the way Rashee Rice has played, with the skill sets he's been showing so far in training camp, and all the other things he's been doing, I really feel like he is somebody who could really step into a good role and be kind of a really improved receiver. We know how hard it is for rookie wide receivers to succeed in Andy Reid's system. It's a complicated offense, a lot to learn. As I always like to point out, there's no dummy routes. There's no route you're running just to clear out space. Don't ever look for the ball. Every route is available on every play. So you got to be in the right spot, knowing the right thing. And that's the biggest thing being raved about Rashee Rice, is he's constantly in the right spot. He's on time. He's not mucking up the offense, which if you want to get playing time as a rookie for Andy Reid's offense, you have to be on time. You have to be on schedule. And that's what I think Rashee Rice is doing the best. And the quality he's showing that is going to ingrain himself into this team and in this offense more than anything else is he's being on time. He's knowing the playbook. He's powering through. And the fact that he's doing all this after what was kind of a rough start to his Chiefs career with the whole rookie minicamp thing and conditioning and the worries with, was going to be ready and how he was feeling. He's just a guy who probably didn't know how much he was going to have to run in an Andy Reid training camp where his receivers run a lot. He now seems better. We're getting better reports. We're going to have to wait and see what he looks like in preseason games, see what he looks like as pads come on, see what it looks like as the training camp action goes. There's only so much you can take away from training camp, a lot. But he has strung together multiple good days, back-to-back together very strongly. And I really think Rashee Rice could find himself a nice little spot in this offense going forward. But we'll just have to wait and see. We'll take one more timeout, wrap things up with a mic drop coming up next. Time to wrap things up with the mic drop here on Mic'd Up on 580 WIBW. For me, it's very simple. We are witnessing the greatest baseball player of all time, and I am no longer afraid to use that specific terming. Shohei Ohtani today, through his first career complete game shutout in MLB, 9 innings, 1 hit, no runs. He walked 3, he struck out 8. He did go 0 for 5 at the plate. That part is a bummer for today. But the guy who just did all of that, who did all of those amazing things today, he currently leads MLB in OPS, slugging, home runs, tied for the league lead in triples, and leads the league in lowest opponent batting average allowed. That guy, that dude, just dominated the Angels on the mound. He did it one day after the Angels announced, hey, we ain't getting rid of him. He isn't doing it. And what a way to go out. It's amazing. It's awesome. Shohei Ohtani also has been speaking with the media following his start. This is from Sam Bloom, the Angels beat writer, just to finish up here. Shohei has said, quote, I think this is the first time in my 6 years that we've been buyers. We've been sellers the last 5 years, so this is new to me. I just want to get to know the new guys and welcome them in and compete all together. Shohei also said from the beginning, my plan was to finish with the Angels, and it's going to change. He's happy that all the pressure's gone. What a great man, and he is truly an alien in the sport, and he's awesome. Though, for Mic'd Up, 580 Sports Star with Brendan and Dan are coming up next.